You think African American Christmas tables were just ham and sweet potato pie? Think again. Black families across America created extraordinary holiday dishes that carried tradition, love, and heritage through generations before quietly fading away. Let's dig into 60 African American Christmas dishes no one makes anymore. Fried chicken wings served as Christmas appetizers long before buffalo sauce made them famous, appearing on African American tables seasoned with salt, pepper, and cayenne. Wings were considered less desirable cuts, making them affordable for families who reserved breast meat for main courses. The preparation was straightforward. Wings dredged in seasoned flour and fried in cast iron until skin turned deeply golden and crackled with each bite. Served hot on platters lined with paper napkins, they disappeared within minutes of hitting the table. The seasoning varied by household, with some families adding garlic powder, others preferring paprika for color. Children claimed wings as their territory, knowing adults would focus on other dishes. Church gatherings featured massive platters of wings, with cooks competing over whose seasoning achieved perfect balance. These wings represented pure Southern tradition before commercialization, proving simple preparation of quality ingredients created food people remembered. Cracklin cornbread was the Christmas breakfast staple that transformed rendered pork fat into something crispy and essential to Black holiday mornings. Cracklins, the crispy bits left after rendering lard, were folded into cornbread batter before baking, their porky crunch adding texture that plain cornbread couldn't match. The cornbread was baked in cast-iron skillets preheated with bacon drippings, creating a crust so crispy it shattered when broken. Families who raised their own hogs saved cracklins specifically for Christmas, understanding this ingredient connected the holiday to autumn butchering. Served alongside eggs, ham, and red-eye gravy, cracklin cornbread provided the perfect base for sopping up flavor. Children who grew up eating this bread remembered its distinctive texture long after leaving home. The dish required access to freshly rendered cracklins that modern cooks rarely produce. It represented the complete cycle of raising, butchering, and celebrating that defined rural Black life. Cheese wafers made with sharp cheddar and butter created crispy, salty crackers that children munched by the handful, their homemade quality far superior to anything store-bought could offer. Grandmothers would cream softened butter with finely shredded sharp cheddar cheese, then gradually add flour, salt, and cayenne pepper until the mixture formed a stiff dough. The dough was rolled into logs, wrapped in wax paper, and chilled until firm, then sliced into thin rounds and baked until golden brown and crispy. As they baked, the cheese melted into the butter and flour, creating crackers that were rich, savory, and addictively crunchy with just a hint of heat from the cayenne. In 1970s, Black households, cheese wafers represented Southern tradition and hospitality, recipes that had been passed down through generations. Children loved cheese wafers because they tasted like cheesy potato chips but felt more sophisticated since they were homemade. Scripture cake was the Christmas tradition that taught Bible verses through baking. Black mothers made this using ingredients referenced in the Bible: butter, Judges 5:25, sugar, Jeremiah 6:20, flour, 1 Kings 4:22, eggs, Isaiah 10:14, figs, 1 Samuel 30:12, almonds, Genesis 43:11, raisins, 1 Samuel 30:12, honey, Exodus 16:31, spices, 1 Kings 10:10, and salt, Leviticus 2:13. Children would look up verses while their mothers measured ingredients, learning scripture while preparing Christmas dessert. The secret was the spice combination: cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and cardamom in specific proportions that varied by family. The cake was dense, dark, and rich with dried fruit and nuts. It baked slowly, then was wrapped and aged like fruitcake. Scripture cake represented faith, family, and the connection between food and worship. The spice proportions stayed secret because these defined each family's version. Stewed okra and tomatoes brought the memory of summer into the chill of winter kitchens. When gardens lay bare and fresh produce was only a memory, jars of okra and tomatoes, carefully canned during warm months, were pulled from shelves like treasures. They were simmered together with onions, peppers, and sometimes a touch of bacon grease, bubbling until the stew thickened into something rich and comforting. The okra's gentle stickiness turned the tomatoes silky, giving the dish its signature texture, smooth, savory, and full of life. The color alone, deep red mixed with green, was enough to make a table feel festive, like Christmas painted in food. Served beside rice or a slice of cornbread, it warmed bellies and spirits alike. Stewed okra and tomatoes was never about luxury. It was about wisdom, about saving the best of the earth and making it last. Each spoonful was the taste of sunlight captured in a jar, a promise that even in the coldest season, the memory of warmth and work could live on through food. Persimmon leather was a sweetness born from scarcity, made when sugar was a dream too far from reach. Wild persimmons, soft and golden when ripe, were gathered by hand and mashed into pulp, their tartness fading into deep honeyed flavor as they dried under the southern sun. Spread thin on boards or cloth, the pulp hardened into chewy sheets that could last for months, folded and stored for the hard winter ahead. It was candy made by patience, nutrition pressed into a form that would not spoil. The process itself was quiet work, often done at the edges of daylight, each batch a small defiance against hunger. When the cold arrived and food was scarce, a strip of persimmon leather could lift spirits and soothe hunger's edge. In its sweetness lived a lesson. Survival does not always mean bitterness. Sometimes it tastes like sunlight caught in fruit. Pimento cheese pinwheels made with tortillas spread with creamy pimento cheese and rolled into tight spirals created colorful, easy-to-eat bites that children grabbed enthusiastically. Aunties would spread flour tortillas with homemade pimento cheese made from sharp cheddar, cream cheese, diced pimentos, mayonnaise, and seasonings. The tortillas were then rolled tightly into logs, wrapped in plastic wrap, and refrigerated for several hours to firm up and make slicing easier. Once chilled, the logs were unwrapped and sliced into rounds about half an inch thick, each pinwheel revealing the bright orange cheese dotted with red pimento pieces. In 1970s, Black households' pimento cheese pinwheels represented modern entertaining, a variation on traditional pimento cheese that made serving easier and more elegant. Children loved pimento cheese pinwheels because they were perfectly portioned, colorful, and tasted like their favorite spread in a fun new format. Watermelon rind pickles were the jewel-toned preserves that Black grandmothers made each summer and saved for Christmas morning's breakfast spread. The thick white rind of watermelons, usually discarded, was carefully trimmed of its green skin and pink flesh, then soaked overnight in lime water to ensure crispness. The prepared rinds were simmered in spiced syrup, heavy with cinnamon, cloves, and allspice, until they turned translucent and took on the amber color of the cooking liquid. Packed into mason jars, these pickles aged in pantries until the holidays, when they appeared alongside ham and biscuits. Their taste was unexpectedly delicious, sweet, tangy, and warmly spiced with a texture that snapped between the teeth. The pickles represented the waste-nothing philosophy that had sustained Black families through hard times, transforming what others threw away into something worth savoring. Few modern cooks invest the time these preserves required. Smoked fish spread carried coastal African-American community flavors to Christmas celebrations far from any shoreline. Smoked mullet, mackerel, or whiting was flaked carefully, then blended with cream cheese, lemon juice, hot sauce, and minced celery and onion. The mixture was chilled until firm, served surrounded by crackers or vegetables for dipping. Smokiness mingled with bright lemon acid and pepper heat, creating layers developing with each bite. Families near coasts smoked their own fish, while those inland relied on specialty markets or mail order from relatives maintaining water connections. The spread represented African-American migration experience, carrying food traditions from places of origin to new homes across the country. Children learned to distinguish quality smoked fish by texture and flavor depth, education serving them throughout their lives. The tradition reminded families that no matter how far they traveled, the tastes of home could follow them anywhere they went. Cream candy was the old-fashioned confection that Black grandmothers made when they wanted something simpler than pulled taffy but richer than plain sugar drops. Cream and sugar cooked together until the mixture reached the proper stage, then beaten until it turned from glossy to matte and could be poured into buttered pans. The finished candy was dense and smooth, cutting into squares that dissolved slowly on the tongue. Some families added vanilla. Others kept it pure, letting the cream flavor speak for itself. The candy was sometimes called opera cream or buttercream, though recipes varied by region and family tradition. Black communities passed cream candy recipes through generations, each family claiming their version was original. The candy appeared at Christmas alongside flashier confections, its pale squares offering contrast to darker fudges and brittles. Cream candy reminded eaters that sometimes the simplest flavors satisfied most deeply. Hot water cornbread bites transformed the everyday staple into elegant appetizers worthy of Christmas gatherings. The technique required skill. Cornmeal mixed with boiling water, salt, and sometimes sugar, shaped into small rounds and fried until golden. The hot water created texture crisp outside yet tender within, unlike any other cornbread. Families served these warm on platters lined with cloth napkins, alongside pepper jelly or potlikker for dipping. Preparation became communal, with multiple hands shaping bites, while cast-iron skillets worked continuously. Grandmothers insisted water had to be truly boiling and oil exactly the right temperature, passing down wisdom no cookbook contained. Children gathered around stoves, waiting for the first batch to cool enough to eat. The simplicity of ingredients belied the complexity of perfection, making hot water cornbread bites a test separating novice cooks from masters. This appetizer proved that humble ingredients prepared with care could rival anything on fancy tables. Pigtail stew simmered on black stovetops during Christmas week, filling homes with aromas that announced both celebration and tradition. The tails were first cleaned and sometimes smoked, then braised slowly with tomatoes, onions, and whatever vegetables the cook preferred, often lima beans, potatoes, or butter beans. Hours of cooking transformed the tough, cartilaginous tails into something tender and rich, their natural gelatin thickening the stew into something substantial. The meat pulled easily from the bones, its porky flavor intensified by long cooking. Families served this stew over rice, the grains soaking up the flavorful liquid while providing the perfect base for the tender meat. Pigtails were inexpensive, allowing families to create abundance from modest resources. Children who grew up eating this stew remembered its distinctive flavor and texture, though few learned to prepare it themselves. The dish represented Black culinary wisdom, understanding that time and heat could transform the humblest ingredients. Bacon-wrapped water chestnuts delivered crispy, salty, and slightly sweet bites that children fought over despite not knowing exactly what water chestnuts were, the bacon exterior and crunchy interior creating mysterious but delicious combinations. Aunties would drain cans of whole water chestnuts, wrapping each one with half a strip of bacon and securing it with toothpicks before arranging them on baking sheets. Before baking, each bundle was brushed with a mixture of brown sugar and soy sauce that caramelized during cooking, creating a sweet salty glaze that coated the bacon. The water chestnuts roasted until the bacon was crispy and rendered, the fat dripping away while the sugar coating turned golden brown and slightly sticky. In Black households during the 1970s, bacon-wrapped water chestnuts represented sophistication borrowed from magazines, recipes that seemed fancy but remained simple for home cooks. Children loved them because bacon made everything better. Fruitcake soaked in rum was the Christmas tradition that separated good fruitcake from the jokes everyone made about bad fruitcake. Black mothers started this cake in November, giving it time to age properly. The cake was dense with candied fruit, cherries, pineapple, citrus peel, and chopped pecans, bound together with spiced batter. The secret was soaking the fruit in rum for a week before baking, letting it plump and absorb alcohol. After baking, the cake was wrapped in rum-soaked cheesecloth, then wrapped again in foil and stored in a tin. Every week until Christmas, the cloth was unwrapped and more rum was brushed over the cake, building flavor and moisture. By Christmas, the cake was dark, dense, and intensely flavored, nothing like the dry, tasteless versions people complained about. It was sliced thin and served with coffee, a little piece going a long way. The weekly rum basting stayed secret because it required patience and attention that most people wouldn't commit to. Turnip green Potlikker soup was the quiet strength of the table, a dish that came not from what was served first, but from what remained after. When the tender greens were eaten, the broth that simmered beneath them, the Potlikker, was saved like treasure. It was dark and smoky, heavy with the flavor of ham bones, onions, salt, and earth. Mixed with a bit of cornbread, rice, or stray vegetables, it became a nourishing soup that soothed hunger and offered comfort. In the old days, elders called it liquid gold, rich not in coins, but in care. It carried nutrients, yes, but also a promise that nothing made with love should ever go to waste. During the cold weeks after Christmas, families gathered around small bowls of Potlikker, sipping warmth that stretched far beyond its ingredients. Each spoonful was humility and hope combined, a quiet meal that spoke volumes about wisdom and endurance. Caramel corn turned ordinary popped corn into addictive candy that disappeared by the handful at holiday gatherings. Butter, brown sugar, and corn syrup cooked together created a coating that clung to each kernel, hardening into a crunchy shell. The mixture was stirred through large batches of popcorn, then spread on baking sheets and baked slowly until the coating set crisp. Some families added peanuts for protein, others kept it pure, letting the caramel and corn flavors dominate. Black households made caramel corn because popcorn cost almost nothing, and the candy stretched to fill large tins for gift-giving. Children fought over the clusters where multiple kernels stuck together, the best pieces delivering extra crunch and sweetness. Caramel corn appeared at Christmas parties in big bowls, the candy casual enough for snacking, yet special enough for celebrations. The recipe was forgiving, making it accessible to cooks of all skill levels while producing results that impressed. Salmon croquettes appeared on African-American Christmas appetizer platters as elegant bites stretching canned fish festively. Canned salmon was flaked, mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, onion, and seasonings, then shaped into patties and fried golden. The exterior turned crispy while interior stayed moist, each bite delivering salmon richness balanced by seasonings. Families made them small for appetizer portions, knowing guests could eat several without filling up. The preparation was economical. A single can yielded a dozen croquettes when stretched with binders. Children often helped shape patties, learning kitchen skills while contributing to preparations. Served with remoulade or tartar sauce, salmon croquettes felt sophisticated despite humble origins. The tradition connected to times when canned salmon provided affordable protein for families far from coasts. These croquettes proved African-American cooks transformed pantry staples into celebration. Pickled pig ears appeared on Black Christmas buffets as the briny, chewy delicacy that only the adventurous truly appreciated. The ears were first cleaned thoroughly and simmered until tender, then sliced thin and packed into jars with vinegar, onions, and hot peppers. Weeks of pickling transformed the cartilaginous ears into something tangy and satisfying, their unique texture providing contrast to the rich meats and sweet desserts dominating holiday spreads. Served cold, straight from the jar, pig ears were eaten with crackers or simply picked up and savored by those who understood their appeal. Children often wrinkled their noses, but elders who had grown up with this dish looked forward to its appearance each Christmas. The pickled ears represented the waste-nothing philosophy that had sustained Black families through generations of scarcity. Making them required planning and patience. The ears needed weeks in brine to develop proper flavor. Few modern cooks undertake this preparation anymore. Miniature cornbread muffins with honey butter were golden gems that children popped into their mouths whole, the crumbly cornbread texture melting while sweet honey butter added richness. Mothers would prepare cornbread batter using stone-ground cornmeal, flour, eggs, buttermilk, and just enough sugar to balance the corn's natural earthiness, then spoon it into mini muffin tins that baked quickly. The muffins emerged from ovens with crispy, slightly caramelized tops and tender, crumbly interiors that begged to be broken open and slathered with butter. Honey butter was made by whipping softened butter with honey until fluffy and smooth, creating a spread that melted instantly when slathered on hot muffins. In the 1970s, Black households, these miniature cornbread muffins represented Southern hospitality in bite-sized form. Children loved them because they were individually portioned, making them feel like special treats rather than ordinary bread, and the sweet honey butter made every bite feel indulgent and special. Honey-glazed cornbread dressing was the side dish guests returned for thirds of, completely different from dry sage-heavy stuffing. Black mothers made their own cornbread in cast iron until dark and crusty, then crumbled it and left it out overnight. The cornbread was mixed with sautéed celery, onions, and the secret trinity, bell peppers that added sweetness and color. The liquid wasn't just broth, but turkey drippings, chicken stock, and the secret addition. Honey stirred into melted butter. Eggs bound it together, sage and thyme added savory depth, but the honey created complexity. Some families added chopped pecans, others stirred in crumbled sausage, but the honey butter mixture was universal. The dressing was spread in deep pans, dotted with butter, and baked until the top crisped while the inside stayed moist. The honey caramelized slightly, creating sweet spots that contrasted with savory richness. Mothers guarded the honey technique because it separated good from unforgettable dressing. Buttermilk cornbread pudding was the sweet ending to a long day's work, born from the habit of never wasting a crumb. Leftover cornbread was crumbled into a pan, soaked in buttermilk, sugar, and a few eggs, then baked until golden and bubbling at the edges. The result was soft and custardy, rich with tang and sweetness. Families who had little turned this into something extraordinary, a dessert that cost almost nothing but tasted like a celebration. Served warm with a drizzle of syrup or a spoon of butter, it filled the room with quiet joy. The flavor was simple, but the feeling was grand. Buttermilk cornbread pudding showed that the same bread that fed you through hard times could also bring comfort when the world finally slowed down. It was thrift turned into tenderness, poverty turned into pride, and warmth turned into sweetness. Molasses popcorn balls combined two Southern staples into Christmas treats that children could help create. Popcorn was popped in large batches, then molasses, sugar, and butter were boiled together until the mixture reached hardball stage. The hot syrup was poured over popcorn and stirred quickly before buttered hands shaped the mixture into balls while still warm enough to mold. Speed mattered. Wait too long and the candy hardened before shaping was complete. The finished balls were wrapped in waxed paper, their bumpy surfaces shining with molasses glaze. Black families made popcorn balls because both ingredients were cheap and the process was forgiving enough for children to participate. The balls appeared on Christmas tables and in stockings, their size and shape satisfying in ways that individual candies couldn't match. Molasses popcorn balls represented family candy making at its most accessible, the kind of treat that created memories through shared labor. Shrimp cocktail served in small cups with tangy cocktail sauce was elegant finger food that made children feel sophisticated. The cold, tender shrimp dipped in spicy sweet sauce, creating flavors that seemed fancy. Mothers would boil shrimp in seasoned water with Old Bay seasoning, lemon, and bay leaves until they turned pink and curled, then plunge them into ice water to stop the cooking. Once chilled, the shrimp were peeled and deveined, their tails left on for easy handling, then arranged around small cups filled with cocktail sauce made from ketchup, horseradish, lemon juice, and Worcestershire sauce. The cocktail sauce had a sharp, tangy kick that balanced the shrimp's natural sweetness, creating combinations that felt restaurant quality. In the 1970s, Black households, shrimp cocktail represented luxury and celebration, an appetizer that elevated holiday gatherings. Children loved shrimp cocktail because they could hold the shrimp by the tail and dip them like French fries. Buttermilk sky biscuits were Christmas morning tradition, tall and fluffy and buttery enough to make store-bought rolls irrelevant. Black mothers made these before sunrise using self-rising flour, buttermilk, and cold butter cut into pea-sized pieces, never melted. because that destroyed flakiness. The secret was handling the dough minimally, folding it exactly 3 times to create layers without developing gluten. Some grandmothers used white lily flour specifically, swearing nothing else produced the same tenderness. The shaped biscuits were placed touching in cast iron skillets, so sides stayed soft while tops and bottoms crisped. Before baking, each was brushed with melted butter mixed with honey, not enough to make them sweet, just enough to create a golden glaze. They baked until risen to twice their height, then were brushed with more honey butter while hot. The recipe stayed secret because perfect biscuits required technique more than ingredients. Bread pudding with cane syrup was the dessert that proved nothing, not even stale bread, was ever truly lost. Pieces of leftover loaves were soaked in warm milk, beaten eggs, and a heavy drizzle of homemade cane syrup until they softened into something new. The mixture baked slowly, filling the room with a smell deep and sweet enough to make mouths water long before it was ready. Once out of the oven, it was sticky, tender, and golden on top, like sunshine trapped in sugar. For families who could not afford store-bought sweets, this was luxury in a pan. The cane syrup gave it a depth that regular sugar never could, a taste of smoke, soil, and patience. Every bite carried the memory of hands stirring, saving, and savoring. Bread pudding with cane syrup was warmth made edible, a Christmas comfort born straight out of resourcefulness and love. Coconut patties brought tropical sweetness to southern Black Christmas tables, the shredded coconut bound with sugar syrup into rounds that could be dipped in chocolate or left plain. The candy required simmering coconut with sugar and milk until the mixture thickened enough to hold its shape when dropped onto waxed paper. Some families added vanilla or almond extract. Others kept the flavor pure, letting the coconut speak for itself. The patties were sometimes tinted pink or green for holiday color, food coloring stirred into the mixture before shaping. After cooling, many were dipped halfway in melted chocolate, creating two-toned treats that looked professional enough for gift-giving. Coconut patties appeared on platters alongside other homemade candies, their tropical flavor a contrast to the molasses and nut-based confections that dominated Southern candy making. The recipe traveled through Black communities as women shared techniques at church gatherings, each family adding small variations that made their version distinct. Hog's head cheese showcased African-American mastery of using every part of the animal with respect and creativity. Despite its name, this wasn't cheese but a cold cut made by simmering head meat until tender, then chopping it fine and setting it in natural gelatin. Sliced thin and served on crackers or bread rounds, hog's head cheese offered complex flavors. Savory meat bound by silky aspic flavored with vinegar, sage, and black pepper. Families made it during hog killing season, timing preparation to have fresh slices ready for Christmas. The dish required patience and skill, with cooks carefully balancing seasonings and achieving proper texture. Elders remembered when hog's head cheese represented survival rather than celebration, but Christmas presentation elevated it with pride. Younger guests sometimes hesitated at the appearance, but one taste often converted them into believers. The tradition connected holiday tables to agricultural roots, honoring animals by wasting nothing and transforming every part into nourishment. Brandied peaches were the jeweled preserves that Black grandmothers tucked into cupboards each summer, waiting for Christmas morning when they would finally appear on breakfast tables. Fresh peaches were carefully peeled and halved, then simmered in sugar syrup infused with cinnamon, cloves, and generous amounts of brandy until they became translucent and deeply perfumed. The preserved fruit was ladled into glass jars and sealed, their golden contents visible through the glass, like edible treasures. By December, the peaches had absorbed the brandy completely, their flesh soft and boozy with complex sweetness that balanced fruit, spice, and spirits. Served alongside ham and biscuits, they cut through the richness of holiday breakfast while adding their own sophisticated note. Children were usually given only the syrup, while adults savored the brandied fruit that represented months of anticipation. These preserves required summer's abundance and December's patience, connecting the seasons through flavor. Ham biscuits made with country ham and soft dinner rolls became handheld sandwiches that children devoured, the salty ham contrasting perfectly with the sweet, buttery rolls that held everything together. Mothers would slice country ham paper thin, the intensely salty, cured meat packed with flavor that needed only small amounts to satisfy. Then tuck the slices into soft dinner rolls that had been split and buttered. Some families brushed the tops of the assembled biscuits with melted butter and baked them briefly to warm everything through and create slightly crispy tops. The combination of salty, savory ham with soft, slightly sweet rolls created perfect flavor balance that kept people coming back for more. In 1970s Black households, ham biscuits represented Southern tradition, appetizers that could be prepared ahead and served at room temperature. Children loved ham biscuits because they were familiar comfort food in easy-to-eat form, requiring no plates or utensils and perfect for grabbing. Candied yams with pineapple and pecans were the Christmas side dish that children actually asked for seconds of. Black mothers baked yams until tender, then peeled and sliced them thick, arranging them in buttered baking dishes. The syrup wasn't just butter and sugar, but included crushed pineapple with its juice, brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and the secret addition of orange juice and zest that brightened the sweetness. Pecan halves were pressed into the top, creating a gorgeous presentation. The dish baked until the syrup thickened and caramelized, the pecans toasted, and the yams absorbed all those flavors. Some families added marshmallows for the last few minutes, but traditionalists kept it pure. The pineapple added moisture, while the orange juice kept them from being cloying. This dish appeared on every Christmas table, its sweet richness balancing savory meats. The orange juice addition stayed secret because it was the key to perfectly balanced sweetness. Cabbage and smoked sausage stew was what happened when wisdom met hunger and turned necessity into nourishment. In many kitchens, just one link of sausage was enough to flavor an entire pot, its smoky saltiness seeping deep into the tender folds of cabbage and the soft cubes of potato below. Everything simmered slowly on the stove through the afternoon, filling the home with a smell that felt like safety itself. For Christmas, this humble stew took on special meaning, a dish that stretched small portions into abundance, gathering families around steaming bowls and simple gratitude. The broth was rich without being heavy, each bite balanced between spice and sweetness, softness and strength. No one left hungry, no matter how modest the table. The stew reminded everyone that good food was not about excess, but about intention, about patience and care. Every spoonful carried the echo of firewood crackling, hands stirring, and voices laughing nearby. Cabbage and smoked sausage stew was proof that celebration does not come from wealth, but from the warmth that fills a kitchen when people share what they have. Persimmon seed coffee emerged when imported beans were rare or too costly for enslaved communities. Wild persimmons dropped their fruit in autumn, and the hard seeds inside were washed, dried, and roasted until dark and fragrant. Ground and steeped in hot water, they produced a warm, nutty beverage with no caffeine but plenty of comfort on cold mornings. This practice carried forward after the Civil War, especially during wartime shortages when coffee imports faltered again. Families across the South roasted persimmon seeds alongside chicory or other local substitutes, proving the durability of this inventive method. The gentle flavor and toasty aroma made it a beloved alternative long after necessity faded. Today, a few heritage festivals still brew persimmon seed coffee to honor the ingenuity of those who first discovered its rich taste. The drink reminds us that creativity in the face of scarcity can yield traditions that outlast the circumstances that gave birth to them, turning survival into a legacy of flavor and resilience. Rumaki-wrapped chicken livers and water chestnuts in bacon created sophisticated bites that curious children tried, the crispy bacon exterior making them willing to taste the unfamiliar liver that turned out mild. Aunties would cut chicken livers into bite-sized pieces, marinate them briefly in soy sauce and ginger, then wrap them with water chestnut slices in bacon before securing everything with toothpicks. The bundles were arranged on baking sheets and roasted until the bacon crisped and rendered, the fat keeping the liver moist while adding smoky saltiness that transformed the organ meat into something special. As they cooked, the soy sauce caramelized slightly, creating a sweet savory glaze that coated the bacon. In Black households during the 1970s, rumaki represented culinary adventurousness, recipes borrowed from magazines that brought international flavors to holiday tables. Children who were brave enough to try them discovered that bacon really did make everything better. Divinity candy was the snow-white confection that tested Black cooks' patience every Christmas, its success dependent on weather, timing, and prayers that the sugar would set properly. This ethereal candy was made by cooking sugar syrup to the hardball stage, then slowly pouring it into beaten egg whites while mixing constantly until thick and cloud-like. Pecans were folded through before the mixture was dropped onto waxed paper, each mound setting into pillowy perfection, or collapsing into sticky failure if humidity interfered. Grandmothers refused to attempt divinity on rainy days, knowing moisture would prevent proper setting. When it worked, divinity melted on the tongue with sweetness that seemed to float. The candy was often tinted pink or green for holiday color, arranged on platters where it looked like edible clouds. Divinity represented temperamental candy making requiring experience and intuition, skills that fewer cooks now possess. Deviled crab brought coastal luxury to African American Christmas celebrations, with seasoned crab meat packed into shells and baked until golden. Fresh crab was picked clean, then mixed with breadcrumbs, mayonnaise, mustard, and enough cayenne to justify the deviled name. The mixture was spooned back into cleaned shells, topped with breadcrumbs and butter, then baked until tops turned crispy brown. Families near the Chesapeake, Gulf Coast, or Carolina shores gathered their own crabs, making this elegant appetizer practically free. The preparation required patience, picking crab took time, and filling needed careful seasoning to enhance rather than mask sweet crab flavor. Church suppers featured deviled crab as special occasion food, with cooks earning reputations based on signature recipes. Children learned to crack and pick crabs alongside elders, education connecting them to coastal heritage. Deviled crab proved that African American cooks transformed regional abundance into celebration worthy of finest gatherings. Date roll candy wrapped the concentrated sweetness of dates in nut-studded confection that sliced into pinwheels. Chopped dates cooked with sugar until they formed thick paste, then nuts, usually pecans or walnuts, were stirred through before the mixture was shaped into logs. Some families rolled the logs in powdered sugar or shredded coconut, creating coating that prevented sticking and added texture. After chilling until firm, the rolls were sliced into rounds that revealed the swirled interior. Dates were available year-round but appeared most often at Christmas when fancy candies were expected. Black grandmothers made date rolls because the candy kept well and traveled safely, making it ideal for gift-giving and church gatherings. The natural sweetness of dates meant less sugar was needed, though recipes varied by how sweet each family preferred their candy. Date rolls represented the bridge between fruit and confection, healthy enough to justify seconds while sweet enough to satisfy. Sardine spread offered affordable protein and bold flavor on African American Christmas appetizer tables, transforming canned fish into celebration food. Sardines were mashed with cream cheese, lemon juice, hot sauce, and minced onion until smooth enough to spread on crackers. The flavor was assertive, briny, rich, and unmistakably fishy, but devotees considered that intensity the whole point. Families appreciated how a single can of sardines combined with pantry staples could feed a dozen guests, making the spread economical. The preparation took minutes, allowing cooks to focus on more demanding dishes while still offering variety. Children often avoided sardine spread, but adults who grew up eating it sought it out at gatherings, disappointed when it didn't appear. The tradition connected to times when canned fish provided essential nutrition during lean periods, with Christmas elevating survival food. Sardine spread reminded families that flavor didn't require expensive ingredients, just confidence in traditional tastes. Cornmeal cookies were the humble Christmas treats that Black grandmothers baked when butter cookies seemed too expensive. These simple cookies combined cornmeal with flour, sugar, eggs, and whatever fat was available, lard, shortening, or butter, creating a texture both crumbly and satisfying. The cornmeal added subtle grit and earthiness that distinguished these cookies from refined flour cousins. Flavored with vanilla, nutmeg, or lemon zest, they were cut into simple shapes and baked until golden. Children loved them for their sweetness, and adults appreciated their practicality. Cornmeal stretched further than expensive flour alone. The cookies were packed into tins and given as gifts, their modest appearance belying the care in their creation. Cornmeal cookies represented the creative economy of Black baking, turning inexpensive ingredients into something worth sharing. They have largely disappeared as commercial cookies became cheaper than homemade versions. Smoked oysters on crackers with hot sauce were adventurous bites that curious children tried. The smoky, briny oysters creating complex flavors that divided people into lovers and haters with no middle ground. Fathers would open tins of smoked oysters packed in oil, arranging them on serving platters surrounded by crackers and providing small bottles of hot sauce for those who wanted extra heat. The oysters had a strong, distinctive flavor, smoky from the curing process and intensely oceanic. Each oyster was placed on a cracker, sometimes with a tiny drop of hot sauce, creating bite-sized portions that delivered maximum flavor. In 1970s, Black households smoked oysters represented coastal sophistication and culinary bravery, appetizers that showed guests the host was willing to serve bold, distinctive foods. Children who tried smoked oysters either loved them immediately or swore them off forever, the strong flavor creating lasting memories. Hot wassail with spices was the Christmas drink that kept a pot simmering on the stove throughout the holidays. Black mothers made this with apple cider, orange juice, lemon juice, and the secret spice blend: whole cloves, cinnamon sticks, allspice berries, and star anise tied in cheesecloth. The mixture simmered for hours, filling the house with smell that announced Christmas more than any decoration could. The secret addition was cranberry juice and a splash of rum or brandy that added complexity without making it boozy. The wassail was served in mugs to guests who dropped by, to children coming in from playing in snow, to adults gathered around the tree. Each mug was garnished with an orange slice studded with cloves. The spice blend and cranberry addition stayed secret because these created depth that plain apple cider couldn't match. Mothers kept the pot going from Christmas Eve through New Year's Day. Cracklin' cornbread was the sound and scent of Southern celebration, simple, hearty, and alive with flavor. The batter began with cornmeal, salt, and buttermilk, stirred smooth before being folded around handfuls of crispy pork cracklins, those golden bits left from rendering lard. When poured into a sizzling iron skillet, the mixture hissed and popped, the edges browning fast while the center baked tender and fragrant. The smell filled every corner of the house, smoke, salt, and sweetness in harmony. Pulled hot from the oven, it was sliced thick and served with cane syrup or honey, sometimes alongside collards or field peas. Every bite carried the crunch of the cracklins, the warmth of corn, and the satisfaction of something made from almost nothing. At Christmas, this cornbread became a feast in itself. Simple food transformed into comfort and pride. Cracklin' cornbread was more than a dish. It was tradition sizzling in a skillet, a golden link between the past and the present, proof that flavor could rise from thrift and care. Peanut butter fudge required no chocolate. The smooth spread transformed into candy that cut into perfect squares and melted on the tongue. Sugar and milk boiled together until soft ball stage. Then peanut butter and vanilla were beaten through until the mixture thickened enough to pour into buttered pans. The fudge set firm but not hard, yielding to teeth with creamy resistance before dissolving into sweetness. Some families added marshmallow creme for lighter texture. Others kept it dense and pure, letting the peanut butter flavor dominate. The candy was easier than traditional fudge, more forgiving of temperature variations that would ruin chocolate versions. Black grandmothers made peanut butter fudge when time was short, but homemade candy was expected, the recipe reliable enough for even inexperienced cooks. Cut into squares and arranged on plates, it looked as impressive as fancier confections while requiring half the effort. Peanut butter fudge democratized candy making, bringing success within reach of anyone. Pepper jelly and cream cheese balanced sweet heat against cool creaminess, becoming a fixture on African American Christmas tables by mid-century. Homemade pepper jelly used hot peppers from summer gardens, preserved with sugar and vinegar until transformed into jewel-colored spreads glowing when held to light. A block of cream cheese served as foundation, jelly spooned generously over top, crackers provided for spreading. The combination worked because cream cheese tempered pepper heat while jelly's sweetness enhanced complex flavors. Families took pride in jelly-making skills, adjusting pepper varieties for signature heat levels. Some added bell peppers for color, others used habaneros for serious spice. The appetizer required no last-minute preparation, ideal for hosts juggling multiple dishes. Church gatherings featured several versions, guests comparing heat levels and declaring favorites. The tradition represented how African American cooks elevated simple ingredients through preservation techniques from generations past. Boiled custard was the pourable Christmas dessert that Black families served warm in cups or chilled over cake, its silky richness occupying the space between eggnog and vanilla pudding. Making proper boiled custard required standing over the stove, whisking constantly as eggs, sugar, and milk slowly thickened without curdling, a transformation demanding patience and attention. The mixture was flavored with vanilla and sometimes a splash of bourbon, then strained through cheesecloth to ensure perfect smoothness. Served warm, it coated the throat with comforting richness on cold Christmas evenings. Poured over pound cake or fruit cake, it added moisture and sweetness that elevated simple desserts. Grandmothers kept their custard recipes closely guarded, each family's version slightly different in sweetness or spicing. Children begged for cups of the warm liquid, its eggy richness satisfying in ways that modern puddings never matched. Boiled custard represented the kind of patient, attentive cooking that has largely disappeared. Molasses ginger snap cookies were the Christmas cookies that actually snapped when broken, spicy, and crisp, and perfect for dunking in coffee. Black mothers made these weeks before Christmas, storing them in tins where they stayed fresh through New Year's. The dough started with molasses, dark, not light, which gave the cookies deep flavor and dark color. Fresh ginger was grated into the dough along with ground ginger, creating layers of heat. The secret was black pepper and cayenne, just pinches that added complexity without obvious spiciness. The dough was chilled overnight, then rolled into balls, rolled in coarse sugar, and baked until the edges set. As they cooled, the centers firmed into the perfect snap. These weren't soft, chewy cookies, but proper ginger snaps that crackled. They were packed into tins with parchment between layers, given as gifts to neighbors and teachers. The pepper and cayenne edition stayed secret because most people couldn't identify what made these snaps more interesting. Wild plum jam tartlets were little treasures made from what the land gave freely, turning foraged fruit into sweetness that carried through the seasons. When wild plums ripened in the heat of summer, families gathered them from the edges of fields and fence rows, their tart skins staining fingers deep red. Those plums were boiled down with sugar and patience, stirred until they thickened into a glossy jam that caught the sunlight like stained glass. Stored in jars through the long months, that jam became a promise of warmth when winter arrived. By Christmas, scraps of pie dough or leftover biscuit dough were rolled thin and filled with a spoonful of that plum preserve, then folded and baked until the air filled with the scent of fruit and flour mingled together. They came out bubbling, their centers jeweled and edges browned, each one small enough to vanish in 2 bites, but rich enough to linger in memory. Shared during church gatherings or family dinners, they were a reminder that sweetness didn't come from wealth. It came from will, from time, from knowing how to make something precious out of what was freely given. Wild plum tartlets weren't just dessert. They were evidence that nature and nurture could meet in a single bite. Grease gravy rice was what people cooked when they refused to let anything go to waste. When breakfast meats were done frying, the leftover grease became treasure. A spoon of flour went in first, sizzling and popping until it turned golden. Then milk or water got poured in, slow and steady, until it thickened into smooth gravy. That hot gravy poured over white rice made something out of nearly nothing, It was salty, creamy, and smoky all at once. The smell filled the house, and the taste filled the stomach. Parents called it breakfast, but it could carry a family through an entire day. It came from kitchens that knew survival like a second language, where flavor was earned from thrift and patience. Kids grew up thinking it was comfort food, not knowing it was born from rationing and struggle. Grease gravy rice was more than a recipe. It was a declaration that no meal was too small to matter. Every bite was a promise that the family would eat, even when times were lean. It was humble food that carried pride on a spoon. Cream cheese and olive pinwheels, made with softened cream cheese mixed with chopped green olives and rolled in tortillas, created tangy, savory bites. Children found intriguing. Aunties would soften cream cheese and mix it with finely chopped green olives, pimentos, and sometimes a touch of garlic powder, spreading the mixture evenly on flour tortillas. The tortillas were rolled tightly, wrapped in plastic, and refrigerated for hours to firm up before being sliced into colorful pinwheels. Each slice revealed swirls of white cream cheese dotted with green olive pieces, creating visual appeal that drew children's attention. In 1970s, Black households, these pinwheels represented creative entertaining, showing how simple ingredients could become elegant appetizers. Children loved them because they were fun to look at, easy to eat, and introduced them to olives in a creamy format that made the vegetables more approachable and less intimidating than eating them whole. Pralines were the Christmas candy that Black families in Louisiana and across the Gulf Coast made in batches large enough to fill tins for giving and keeping. These creamy pecan confections required cooking sugar, butter, and cream to the precise temperature where candy transforms from syrup to something miraculous. The mixture was dropped by spoonfuls onto waxed paper, each praline spreading into a disc with pecans suspended throughout like jewels in amber. Getting the temperature right meant the difference between pralines that melted on the tongue and those that turned grainy or refused to set at all. Grandmothers tested readiness by dropping bits into cold water, watching for the soft ball stage that signaled perfection. The candy was often made in the days before Christmas, stored in tins lined with waxed paper and brought out for visitors who expected this hospitality. Pralines represented the intersection of French, African, and American traditions that made Louisiana cooking unique. Fried okra bites brought the beloved southern vegetable to Christmas tables in perfect form for passing and sharing. Fresh okra was sliced into rounds, soaked in buttermilk, then dredged in seasoned cornmeal before frying in small batches until crispy and golden. Buttermilk tenderized okra while reducing natural slickness, creating bites crunchy outside and tender within. Families served them hot in napkin-lined baskets, often with remoulade or pepper vinegar for dipping. Preparation required attention. Oil temperature maintained precisely. Okra couldn't sit after dredging or coating became soggy. Grandmothers stationed themselves at stoves, frying continuously while younger family carried fresh baskets to guests. The aroma of frying okra mixed with holiday spices created scent memories lasting generations. Children claiming to dislike okra often converted by crispy bites, disguising the vegetable's texture. The tradition honored African agricultural heritage while adapting it to celebration, making okra worthy of finest gatherings. Seafoam candy was divinity's delicate cousin, lighter and more fragile, dissolving almost before the tongue could register its sweetness. Brown sugar replaced white in the syrup, creating a candy with caramel undertones that made it richer than its pure white relative. The process was identical. Syrup poured into beaten egg whites, whipped until the mixture held shape, but the result looked like clouds at sunset, pale tan and pillowy. Black grandmothers made seafoam for Christmas because it offered variety on candy platters dominated by dark fudges and brittles. The candy was impossibly light, each piece weighing almost nothing yet delivering concentrated sweetness. Children loved seafoam for its melt-away texture, while adults appreciated its sophisticated flavor. Like divinity, seafoam demanded dry weather and proper technique, refusing to set properly when humidity crept too high. The candy represented refinement when traditional skills met variations on familiar themes. Hoghead cheese appeared on Black Christmas buffets as a savory counterpoint to the sweet desserts and rich main dishes that dominated holiday tables. This wasn't cheese at all, but a cold meat preparation made by simmering the pig's head with onions, vinegar, and spices until the meat fell from the bone. The cooking liquid, rich with natural gelatin, was mixed with the shredded meat and pressed into loaves that set firm when chilled. Sliced thin and served cold with crackers or bread, hoghead cheese delivered intense porky flavor brightened by vinegar's tang. Black families throughout the South prepared this dish in the days before Christmas, letting it set overnight so it could be sliced and arranged on platters. The preparation required skill and patience, knowing exactly when the meat was tender, how much vinegar to add, how firm the final product should be. Hoghead cheese represented the nose-to-tail cooking philosophy that ensured nothing from the holiday hog went to waste. Bacon-wrapped dates appeared on African-American Christmas appetizer spreads, offering perfect balance of sweet, salty, and savory. Medjool dates were pitted and sometimes stuffed with almonds before being wrapped in bacon and baked until bacon crisped. The combination worked because bacon's smokiness enhanced dates' caramel sweetness while textures contrasted perfectly. Families learned this appetizer from church cookbooks or neighbors, and it quickly became a holiday standard. The preparation was simple enough for children to help, wrapping dates and securing with toothpicks. Baking rendered bacon fat while caramelizing dates, creating something greater than components suggested. Church gatherings featured platters that disappeared within minutes, with guests returning until nothing remained. This appetizer proved that the best holiday foods came from simple combinations executed with care. Green tomato slices served with remoulade sauce were crispy, tangy bites that introduced children to Southern traditions, the cornmeal coating providing crunch while the tart tomato inside stayed firm and flavorful. Mothers would slice green tomatoes thick, dredge them in seasoned cornmeal mixed with flour and spices, then fry them in hot oil until golden brown and crispy. The remoulade sauce was made from mayonnaise, mustard, pickles, capers, and spices, creating a tangy, creamy dip that complemented the fried tomatoes perfectly. Each slice was served hot with a small dish of sauce for dipping, the combination of temperatures and textures making every bite interesting. In 1970s, Black households, fried green tomatoes represented end-of-season resourcefulness, using tomatoes that wouldn't ripen before frost to create something delicious. Children loved fried green tomatoes because they were crispy like French fries but tasted tangy and different, expanding their understanding of what vegetables could be. Brandied cranberry orange relish was the condiment that made store-bought cranberry sauce look like a joke. Black mothers made this weeks in advance with fresh cranberries that popped and burst as they cooked with sugar, orange juice, and zest. The secret was cooking them just until they broke down but still had texture, never letting them turn to mush. Once cooled, the relish was spiked with good brandy, enough to taste clearly but not be boozy, plus crystallized ginger chopped fine for heat. Some families added chopped pecans, others used golden raisins plumped in the brandy first. The relish was stored in glass jars where the alcohol preserved it and flavors melded into something more complex. By Christmas, it had transformed, sweet, tangy, warm, with brandy depth that paired perfectly with turkey and ham. Mothers guarded the brandy ratio and crystallized ginger addition because these made their relish memorable. Guests asked for the recipe every year, and every year mothers said it was just cranberries. Pulled molasses taffy was the centerpiece of Christmas candy making in Black households, requiring strong arms, patience, and teamwork that turned kitchen labor into celebration. The process began with boiling molasses, sugar, and butter until a drop formed a hard ball in cold water, then pouring the mixture onto greased marble slabs to cool. Once cool enough to handle, the candy was pulled between buttered hands, stretched and folded repeatedly until it transformed from dark and sticky to golden and glossy. Children begged to help, their small hands joining adult ones in rhythmic pulling that could last 30 minutes or more. The finished taffy was twisted into ropes and snipped into pieces that shattered against teeth before melting into chewy sweetness. Families gathered in kitchens on December evenings, the pulling becoming as much tradition as the candy itself. Molasses taffy represented the African-American genius for transforming simple, affordable ingredients into something that tasted like love. Pickled pig's feet appeared on Christmas tables as testament to using every part of the hog with dignity and creativity. Preparation began days before. Feet cleaned meticulously, boiled until tender, then submerged in spiced vinegar brine with bay leaves, peppercorns, and hot peppers. Pickling transformed what some dismissed as scraps into a delicacy with complex flavors, tangy, savory, and rich with gelatin melting on the tongue. Families served them cold from glass jars, arranged on plates with crackers. The dish carried deep significance, representing resourcefulness born of necessity and elevation of humble ingredients into celebration. Elders remembered when pickled feet were everyday sustenance, but Christmas made them special with extra spices and proud presentation. Children often approached with hesitation, but those who learned appreciation became lifelong devotees. The tradition connected holiday tables to ancestral wisdom about wasting nothing and honoring everything that sustains you through hardship and joy alike. Lane cake was the showstopper of Southern Black Christmas gatherings, a towering creation demanding skill and ingredients that pushed household budgets to their limits. Named after Emma Rylander Lane of Alabama, this cake featured delicate white layers filled with bourbon, raisins, coconut, and pecans, cooked until thick and glossy. Black women adapted the recipe across generations, adding their own touches, more bourbon for some, candied cherries for others, while maintaining its legendary character. The filling required constant stirring over low heat, a meditative process that couldn't be rushed. Assembling the cake took steady hands, each layer carefully balanced before being crowned with fluffy white frosting. Lane cake appeared on Christmas sideboards throughout Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, signaling the family had spared no expense for the holiday. Today, few bakers attempt its complexity, letting this masterpiece fade into memory. Great-grandmother's coconut cake was a 3-layer monument to coconut in every form. Black mothers baked white cake layers flavored with coconut milk, giving them moisture that lasted through New Year's. The frosting was genuine boiled icing, sugar, corn syrup, and egg whites beaten while hot syrup drizzled in, creating something between frosting and marshmallow. The secret was the coconut preparation. Fresh coconut was grated, then toasted until golden and fragrant, mixed with sweetened flaked coconut for texture. Between each layer went coconut cream filling, thick and custardy. The assembled cake was covered in boiled frosting, then pressed with handfuls of toasted coconut until no white showed. It was refrigerated overnight so flavors could meld, resulting in cake so moist it melted on your tongue. This recipe stayed secret because it required genuine skill and patience. Store-bought frosting wouldn't work, and rushing the boiled icing meant failure. Anise hard candy carried the distinctive licorice flavor that older generations loved and children often pushed aside in confusion. Sugar cooked to hard crack stage received anise oil, the mixture poured into molds or onto greased slabs where it hardened into glossy drops. The flavor was intense and polarizing. Some couldn't get enough while others rejected it entirely. Black grandmothers made anise candy for Christmas because it reminded them of their own grandmothers, the particular flavor connecting generations across decades. The candy was believed to settle stomachs and freshen breath, making it both treat and medicine. Elders kept anise drops in pockets and purses, reaching for them after rich meals. The candy appeared in mixed holiday tins alongside fruit drops and peppermints, its dark flavor providing contrast. Anise hard candy represented acquired taste and family tradition, each piece carrying memories. Chicken liver pâté brought sophisticated flavors to African-American Christmas tables without requiring expensive ingredients. Chicken livers were sautéed with onions in butter until cooked through, then blended smooth with cream cheese, bourbon, and warm spices. The mixture was packed into crocks and chilled until firm enough to spread on crackers or toast points. The flavor was rich and earthy, with bourbon adding warmth complementing holiday celebrations. Families valued this appetizer because chicken livers cost pennies compared to fancy imported pâtés, yet the result tasted equally elegant. Grandmothers who learned to stretch every dollar transformed humble organs into something guests assumed came from specialty shops. The pâté kept well for days, ready to serve whenever visitors stopped by. Children often wrinkled noses at the idea, but adults savored every creamy bite. This dish proved African American cooks could create refinement from resourcefulness, turning ordinary into extraordinary. Coconut layer cake towered over Black Christmas dessert tables, its snowy white frosting and generous coating of fresh coconut making it look like something from a dream. Baking this cake was an all-day affair that began with cracking coconuts and grating their meat by hand, a task that left knuckles raw but filled kitchens with tropical fragrance. The cake layers themselves were tender white cake, sometimes flavored with coconut milk extracted from the fresh meat. Between each layer went fluffy 7-minute frosting, its glossy whiteness providing the perfect canvas for handfuls of shredded coconut pressed into every surface. The finished cake was often placed under glass domes to protect its delicate coating while it waited for Christmas dinner. Slicing revealed the snowy interior, each piece releasing the sweet perfume of coconut that had become inseparable from holiday celebration. This cake required skill that younger generations rarely developed. Cheese straws made from sharp cheddar and cayenne pepper were crispy, addictive sticks that disappeared from serving bowls almost as quickly as they were refilled, their orange-gold color and spicy kick making them irresistible. Grandmothers would grate blocks of sharp cheddar by hand, mixing it with softened butter, flour, cayenne pepper, and salt until the dough came together, then pressing it through cookie presses or rolling it into long ropes before slicing. The cheese straws baked until crispy and slightly browned at the edges, filling kitchens with the sharp, tangy aroma of melting cheese mixed with subtle heat. Once cooled, they were stored in tins, maintaining crispness for days. In 1970s, Black households, cheese straws represented Southern tradition, recipes passed down through generations with each family adding their signature touch: extra cayenne, paprika, or pecans. Sorghum candy carried the taste of Southern farms into Christmas celebrations, the thick amber syrup boiled and pulled into taffy that tasted of the fields where cane grew tall. Sorghum was cheaper than refined sugar and more accessible in rural Black communities, making it the sweetener of choice for families who couldn't afford store-bought ingredients. The syrup was cooked until it reached the proper stage, then poured onto buttered surfaces to cool before the pulling began. Like molasses taffy, sorghum candy required teamwork and strong arms. The mixture stretched and folded until it lightened in color and developed the characteristic pull and snap. The finished candy carried complex flavors: grassy, slightly bitter, deeply sweet, that refined sugar could never match. Children who grew up eating sorghum candy remembered its particular taste long after moving to cities where the syrup was harder to find. This candy represented connection to the land and to ancestors who had worked that land, each piece carrying history. Field peas and rice, better known as Hoppin' John, was more than a meal. It was a wish cooked into being. On the surface, it was simple. Black-eyed peas simmered slowly with onions, a bit of salt pork or ham hock for flavor, and spooned generously over rice. But each ingredient carried meaning. The peas stood for coins, the rice for abundance, and if greens were added, they symbolized wealth and growth in the new year to come. Families believed that eating it on Christmas or New Year's Day would bring luck, but it was the taste, smoky, earthy, and deeply satisfying, that made it beloved. The scent of simmering peas filled the home long before the first bowl was served. It was cheap to make but rich in comfort, a dish that turned thrift into celebration. For those who had little, it offered the promise of more. For those who had plenty, it was a reminder of humility. Hoppin' John was food that bridged hope and hunger, linking every year to the next with a spoonful of faith. Rum raisin bread pudding used up leftover bread while tasting more luxurious than fresh-baked cake. Black mothers soaked raisins in dark rum for 3 days before Christmas, letting them plump and absorb alcohol. Stale bread, white bread, Hawaiian rolls, leftover cornbread, was cubed and dried overnight. The custard combined eggs, heavy cream, whole milk, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg, with extra yolks for richness. The secret was condensed milk, which added sweetness and created texture that wasn't quite custard, wasn't quite cake. The bread soaked in custard for an hour, absorbing every drop, then was folded with rum-soaked raisins and dotted with butter. It baked low and slow until the top crisped while the inside stayed creamy. The finishing touch was rum butter sauce. Butter, brown sugar, cream, and more rum, poured over warm servings. This appeared only at Christmas because the rum expense and 3-day preparation meant it was saved for the year's most important meal. Sweet potato pone was the dense, caramelized dessert that emerged from black kitchens during Christmas, its texture somewhere between pudding and cake with a sticky sweetness that satisfied the deepest cravings. Grated raw sweet potatoes were mixed with molasses, butter, eggs, and warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg before being poured into heavy cast-iron skillets. The mixture baked low and slow until the top developed a dark, almost candied crust, while the interior remained moist and creamy. Unlike the lighter sweet potato pie, pone was substantial. A single slice could fill you for hours. Families made this dish when sweet potatoes were plentiful and affordable, stretching the humble root vegetable into something that felt like celebration. The recipe required no fancy ingredients, just patience and understanding of how heat transformed starch into sugar. Sweet potato pone appeared on holiday sideboards alongside pies and cakes, offering an earthier alternative to more refined desserts. Fried dill pickles offered unexpected delight on African-American Christmas appetizer tables, transforming tangy pickles into crispy bites. Dill pickle slices were drained well, dipped in seasoned batter, then fried until coating turned golden while inside stayed cool and tangy. The contrast between hot, crispy exterior and cold, sour interior surprised guests encountering the combination. Families discovered this appetizer through county fairs or adventurous cooks experimenting with frying. The preparation required proper draining to prevent spattering and batter adhering to wet surfaces. Children especially loved fried pickles, finding them more exciting than raw pickles could be. Served with ranch dressing for dipping, they disappeared quickly from platters. Fried dill pickles represented African-American spirit of culinary innovation, transforming familiar ingredients into something making people smile. Fruit and nut balls required no cooking at all. The mixture of dried fruits and nuts bound together by their own natural stickiness into dense confections. Dates, raisins, figs, and whatever nuts were available were ground together until they formed a paste, then rolled into balls and coated in shredded coconut or powdered sugar. The candy was dense and chewy, each bite delivering concentrated fruit sweetness alongside nutty richness. Black families made fruit and nut balls for Christmas because ingredients kept well and the recipe demanded no precise temperatures or timing. Children helped by rolling the mixture in their small hands, learning candy making through this forgiving process. The balls appeared on holiday platters as the healthy option among richer confections, though they satisfied cravings as effectively as any fudge. This no-cook candy brought homemade treats within reach of anyone willing to chop and roll. Country ham biscuits anchored African-American Christmas appetizer, spreads with perfect balance of salty, smoky meat and tender, buttery bread. Paper-thin slices of cured country ham were tucked into small biscuits fresh from the oven, sometimes with butter or mustard, creating bites delivering intense flavor in compact form. The ham itself was precious, cured for months in smokehouses and sliced carefully to stretch across many servings. Families who raised their own hogs took pride in serving ham they had cured themselves, while others purchased from local farmers maintaining traditional methods. The biscuits had to be made small, sized for 2 bites at most, ensuring guests could sample without filling up before main meals. Church gatherings featured trays of ham biscuits passed by hand, with recipes for both ham curing and biscuit making guarded as treasures. The combination represented Southern hospitality at its finest, offering guests something homemade, flavorful, and prepared with obvious care and skill. Molasses pull candy was the Christmas treat that turned candy making into family entertainment, requiring strength, patience, and plenty of buttered hands. Molasses was boiled with sugar until it reached the hard crack stage, then poured onto greased marble slabs or buttered platters to cool. When the candy had cooled enough to handle but was still pliable, family members would begin pulling, stretching the dark mass between buttered hands until it lightened in color and developed the right texture. Children took turns pulling, their arms growing tired as the candy transformed from sticky darkness to golden strands. The finished candy was twisted into ropes and cut into pieces that hardened into chewy treats with deep molasses flavor. Making pull candy was as much about togetherness as about the final product. Families gathered in kitchens, laughing as sticky candy stretched between them. This communal candy-making tradition has largely vanished from Christmas celebrations. Cheese ball rolled in pecans sat proudly on serving platters surrounded by crackers, its cream cheese base mixed with cheddar, green onions, and seasonings before being shaped into a perfect sphere and coated with chopped pecans. Aunties would soften cream cheese and mix it with shredded sharp cheddar, finely chopped green onions, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and sometimes hot sauce for complexity. The mixture was then shaped into a ball or log, wrapped in plastic, and chilled until firm enough to handle. Just before serving, the cheese ball was rolled in finely chopped pecans that created a crunchy, nutty coating contrasting beautifully with the creamy interior. In 1970s Black households, cheese balls represented sophistication and effort, centerpieces of appetizer spreads that showed guests the host had put thought into the gathering. Children loved them because they could spread the cheese themselves onto crackers, feeling grown-up and independent. Ambrosia salad with fresh coconut was the Christmas side dish that straddled dessert and salad. Black mothers made this using fresh fruit, mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, and the secret addition of pomegranate seeds that added jewel-tone color and tart brightness. The binding agent wasn't just whipped cream, but a mixture of whipped cream, sour cream, and cream cheese that gave it tanginess. Fresh coconut was grated and toasted lightly, adding nutty depth that sweetened flaked coconut couldn't match. Mini marshmallows were folded in at the last minute so they stayed soft. The salad was refrigerated for several hours, letting flavors meld while the coconut softened. It was served in crystal bowls at Christmas dinner, looking almost too pretty to eat with pink and white and red colors. The pomegranate addition and the cream cheese mixture stayed secret because these elevated ambrosia from church potluck standard to something genuinely special. Pralines carried New Orleans heritage into Black Christmas traditions across the South, their creamy pecan sweetness appearing on holiday tables from Louisiana to the Carolinas. The candy required precise timing. Sugar, cream, and butter cooked to exactly the right temperature before pecans were stirred through, and the mixture was dropped by spoonfuls onto waxed paper. Too hot and the pralines turned grainy. Too cool and they wouldn't set properly. Grandmothers knew the right moment by instinct, watching the way the mixture sheeted off a spoon or listening to the particular bubble and hiss of properly cooked sugar. The finished pralines were creamy, not crunchy, with whole pecan halves suspended in caramelized sweetness that dissolved on the tongue. Families boxed them as gifts for neighbors and church members, the candy representing both generosity and skill. Pralines connected Black families to Creole traditions while creating new memories around Christmas tables where the candy appeared alongside other homemade sweets. Deviled ham spread turned leftover Christmas ham into appetizers, stretching holiday abundance across days of family visiting. Cook's ground or finely chopped cooked ham, blending with mayonnaise, mustard, pickle relish, and hot sauce until reaching perfect spreading consistency. The mixture was packed into crocks, ready to spread on crackers whenever guests arrived unexpectedly. The term deviled referred to spice and mustard, giving the spread its distinctive kick, transforming plain ham into something with personality. Families appreciated how spread made a little ham go far, feeding dozens from what might otherwise be a single sandwich. Children loved helping grind ham through hand-cranked meat grinders, turning handles while adults added seasonings. The spread kept for days, improving as flavors melded together. This appetizer represented the African-American philosophy of abundance through creativity, making sure no guest left hungry and no food went to waste during the most important gathering season of the entire year. Ambrosia was the celestial dessert that appeared on Black Christmas tables in cut glass bowls, its layers of fresh fruit and coconut glistening like edible jewels. This wasn't the simplified version made with canned fruit cocktail. Proper ambrosia required cracking fresh coconuts to extract their sweet meat and milk. Grandmothers would pierce the coconut's eyes, drain the liquid, then crack the shell with hammers before prying out the white flesh to be grated by hand. Fresh oranges were peeled and sectioned, their membranes removed so only tender segments remained. Layers of coconut, orange, and sometimes pineapple were built in serving dishes, each level dusted with powdered sugar. The finished ambrosia was chilled overnight, allowing flavors to meld into something heavenly. Children gathered hoping to taste the coconut milk or sneak a cherry before dinner. The dish represented Christmas abundance, a time when families splurged on ingredients that transformed ordinary fruit into something magical. Pickled shrimp marinated in vinegar, oil, and spices created tangy, flavorful bites that adventurous children tried. The cold, tender shrimp infused with herbs and aromatics that made them taste complex. Aunties would boil shrimp until just cooked, then peel them and place them in jars or bowls where they were covered with a marinade of vinegar, oil, sliced onions, bay leaves, peppercorns, and sometimes lemon slices. The shrimp marinated for at least 24 hours, absorbing the tangy, aromatic flavors and developing a pickled taste that was both refreshing and sophisticated. The marinated shrimp were served cold with toothpicks for easy serving, the onions and bay leaves removed or left in depending on family preference. In Black households during the 1970s, pickled shrimp represented make-ahead convenience, appetizers that actually improved with time. Children who tried pickled shrimp discovered seafood could be tangy and bright. Hoppin' John with collards was New Year's Eve tradition that started at Christmas dinner as a promise of good fortune. Black mothers cooked black-eyed peas with rice, smoked ham hocks, onions, and the secret addition of tomato paste that added depth without announcing itself. The peas simmered until tender, then rice was stirred in to absorb the flavorful broth. Collard greens were served alongside, their potlikker mixing with the Hoppin' John on the plate. The combination represented prosperity, peas for coins, greens for paper money. Some families added hot sauce, others preferred vinegar, but the tomato paste stayed universal. The dish was eaten at midnight on New Year's Eve, ensuring the coming year would bring financial blessing. Mothers made extra because leftovers were considered lucky to eat throughout January. The tomato paste addition stayed secret because it created umami that most people couldn't identify but definitely tasted. Homemade molasses taffy pulls were less about candy and more about connection. On Christmas night, when the chores were done and the fire glowed low, families gathered around iron pots bubbling with dark, fragrant molasses. The syrup was boiled to just the right stage, then poured onto buttered pans to cool until it could be handled. Everyone, from the youngest to the oldest, took a turn pulling the sticky taffy, stretching, twisting, and folding it until it turned from brown to golden, smooth and glossy. The sound of laughter mixed with the crackle of the fire, and the sweet smell filled the room. It was a game, a treat, and a ritual all in one. Fingers stuck together, faces glowed, and worries melted away for a while. When finished, the taffy was rolled into ropes or small candies, wrapped in wax paper, and saved for later or given to neighbors. Molasses taffy pulls were more than sweets. They were the taste of togetherness and joy made by hand. Buttermints melted on the tongue in seconds, their creamy sweetness disappearing almost before the mint flavor registered. The candy was made by cooking butter, sugar, and cream together, then adding peppermint oil and pouring into molds or dropping onto waxed paper. The finished mints were pale, almost white, with a texture somewhere between fondant and fudge. Black families made buttermints for Christmas because they looked elegant, tasted refined, and required no special equipment beyond a good pot and steady attention. Churches served them at holiday receptions, the tiny candies passed on silver trays alongside coffee and punch. Women competed quietly over whose mints were smoothest, whose flavor was most balanced. The candy represented hospitality distilled into bite-sized form, each mint a small gift offered to guests. Buttermints appeared at weddings and funerals too, but Christmas was their true season, their cool sweetness cutting through the richness of heavier holiday foods. Giblet gravy was the rich, deeply flavored sauce that transformed Christmas turkey from simple roast into something memorable and soul-satisfying. The turkey's neck, heart, gizzard, and liver were simmered for hours with onions and celery until they became tender, and the cooking liquid turned into concentrated poultry essence. The cooked giblets were chopped fine and returned to the broth, which was thickened with flour and seasoned until it reached gravy perfection. This wasn't the pale gravy from packets. Giblet gravy was dark, complex, and carried the unmistakable taste of Christmas dinner. Black cooks understood that the giblets, often discarded by hurried modern cooks, contained flavor that the breast meat alone couldn't provide. The gravy was ladled generously over turkey, dressing, and mashed potatoes, tying the entire meal together. Children who grew up with giblet gravy found commercial versions impossibly bland by comparison. Making proper giblet gravy required patience and the willingness to use every part of the bird. Crab cakes formed into mini patties were seafood luxury that made Thanksgiving feel extra special. The sweet crab meat mixed with breadcrumbs and seasonings before being pan-fried until golden. Grandmothers would pick through cans of crab meat to remove any shell pieces, then gently fold the delicate meat with beaten eggs, breadcrumbs, mayonnaise, mustard, Old Bay seasoning, and sometimes diced bell peppers. The mixture was formed into small patties, each one handled carefully, then refrigerated briefly to help them hold together during cooking. The crab cakes were pan-fried in butter until golden brown on both sides, the exterior developing a crispy crust while the interior stayed moist and packed with sweet crab flavor. In the 1970s, Black households, crab cakes represented coastal sophistication, bringing seafood traditions to holiday tables and elevating the appetizer spread. Children loved mini crab cakes because they felt fancy, tasted sweet rather than fishy, and came in sizes perfect for young appetites. Peanut brittle with cayenne was the Christmas candy that had unexpected heat. Black mothers made this by cooking sugar and corn syrup to hard crack stage, then stirring in roasted peanuts, butter, vanilla, and the secret addition, cayenne pepper that added warmth without obvious spiciness. Baking soda was stirred in at the last second, making the candy puff slightly and creating proper texture. The mixture was poured onto buttered sheet pans, spread thin, and left to cool completely. Once hard, it was broken into irregular shards that snapped cleanly. The cayenne made people's mouths warm as they ate, the heat building slowly and making them reach for more. This brittle was packed into tins and given as gifts, its unexpected kick making it memorable. The cayenne addition stayed secret because most people couldn't identify what made this brittle different, only that it was more interesting than any they'd tasted before. Boiled sweet potatoes with butter drizzle were the purest expression of comfort. Simple, sweet, and shining with care. Peeled and simmered in iron pots until tender enough to yield to a fork, the potatoes were laid out on chipped plates, their golden orange flesh glowing in the candlelight of small kitchens. Melted butter, or sometimes a spoonful of cane syrup, was poured over the top, pooling into every crevice until the air smelled like warmth itself. This was food that required no recipe, only attention and love. It was eaten slowly, savored between conversation and quiet gratitude. For families with little, it was proof that nourishment didn't need extravagance. On Christmas, these potatoes sat beside greens or salt pork, turning a humble table into something sacred. The taste was gentle but lasting, sweetness that came not from sugar, but from care. In every soft bite was a reminder that generosity could be found even in simplicity, and that joy could live in the plainest meal. Boiled sweet potatoes with butter were not grand, but they were grace itself made edible. Rum balls were the no-bake Christmas confections that Black grandmothers assembled in church kitchens and home pantries. Their boozy sweetness meant strictly for adult palates. Crushed vanilla wafers were mixed with cocoa powder, powdered sugar, and corn syrup before generous splashes of dark rum transformed the mixture into something that could be rolled into balls. The finished candies were coated in powdered sugar or chopped pecans, then stored in tins where they aged as the rum permeated every particle. These weren't children's treats. The alcohol remained potent and uncooked, delivering warmth that spread through the chest. Women exchanged rum balls as gifts, each batch slightly different depending on the baker's preferred rum. The candies appeared on dessert tables alongside cookies, their dark color and dusted coating signaling sophistication. Making rum balls required no oven, just patience and willingness to work the sticky mixture until it held together. They represented holiday indulgence that has quietly faded. Pickled watermelon rind appeared in cut glass dishes at African American Christmas gatherings, its translucent sweetness offering contrast to savory appetizers. The preparation began during summer watermelon season, when white rind was trimmed, cubed, and preserved in spiced syrup with cinnamon, cloves, and vinegar. Pickling transformed tough rind into something tender and complex, sweet, tangy, and warmly spiced in ways surprising first-time tasters. Families stored jars in pantries for months, saving them for holiday tables where they added elegance and conversation. The tradition represented African American commitment to waste nothing, finding value in parts others discarded. Children often approached with curiosity, discovering flavors unlike anything else on the table. The pickles required patience and planning, connecting summer abundance to winter celebration through preservation arts passed through generations. Pickled watermelon rind proved that the best holiday foods came from creativity rather than expense. 7-layer caramel cake was the crown jewel that appeared only at Christmas, taking 2 full days to complete. Black mothers baked 7 thin yellow layers that had to be perfectly even, then made caramel frosting from scratch by cooking sugar until amber, adding cream at precisely the right moment. The frosting required constant stirring and a candy thermometer, with temperatures mattering more than oven settings. Each layer was brushed with vanilla syrup, then stacked with warm caramel between, assembled while the frosting was still workable. The finished cake stood 8 inches tall with a glossy shell that cracked beautifully when sliced. Grandmothers made this cake, aunties made this cake, but the recipe stayed locked in memory, never written down. It was shared only with daughters who'd proven themselves patient enough to stand at the stove for hours. The cake represented legacy, the kind of food that announced a woman's mastery and her commitment to making Christmas extraordinary. Hog maw and cabbage was the kind of meal that turned survival into something soulful. Made from the pig's stomach, cleaned and stuffed or stewed with greens, onions, and cabbage, it stretched humble ingredients into abundance. Every step took patience, washing, boiling, seasoning, but the result was rich and filling, flavored with the smokiness of salt meat and the sweetness of long cooking. It wasn't fancy, but it fed a crowd, especially during the Christmas season when families gathered in small homes with big appetites. The cabbage soaked up every bit of flavor, soft and savory, while the hog maw added a chew that reminded everyone of the work behind each bite. Dishes like this were born of necessity but shaped by love, created by hands that refused to let anything go to waste. Hog maw and cabbage wasn't just dinner. It was a celebration of endurance, thrift, and the beauty of making do. Butter beans cooked with ham hock and served in small cups became hearty appetizers that filled hungry children before dinner, their creamy texture and smoky flavor creating comfort in every spoonful. Grandmothers would simmer dried butter beans with ham hocks, onions, and seasonings for hours until the beans became tender and creamy while absorbing the smoky, salty flavor from the meat. The finished beans were served in small portions in cups or bowls with small spoons, allowing guests to enjoy them without needing plates. Some families topped the beans with crumbled cornbread or a drizzle of hot sauce for extra flavor and texture. In Black households during the 1970s, butter beans represented soul food tradition brought to the appetizer table, showing that holiday food could honor heritage while fitting modern entertaining formats. Children loved butter beans because they tasted familiar and comforting, like Thanksgiving dinner in miniature form that warmed them from the inside. Fried Stuffed celery brought elegance and crunch to African-American Christmas appetizer spreads, with crisp stalks serving as vessels for savory fillings. The classic filling combined cream cheese with chopped olives, pimentos, and sometimes blue cheese, piped into the celery's natural groove. Other variations used pimento cheese, deviled ham spread, or seasoned cream cheese with chives. The preparation was simple enough for children to help, making it a family activity during holiday cooking. Celery was affordable and available even in winter, while fillings stretched expensive ingredients across many servings. Arranged on platters with stuffed sides facing up, they created colorful rows looking far fancier than their modest cost. Ladies' auxiliaries featured stuffed celery at every gathering, with cooks varying fillings to showcase creativity. The appetizer satisfied those wanting something light, providing crunch and freshness, balancing heavy fare. Stuffed celery represented the gift for making simple ingredients feel celebratory. Candied orange peel transformed what most families threw away into jewel-like confections that sparkled with sugar crystals. The process required patience. Peels boiled multiple times to remove bitterness, then simmered in sugar syrup until they turned translucent and tender. After draining, the strips were rolled in granulated sugar that clung to their sticky surfaces, creating treats that looked like stained glass and tasted of concentrated citrus. Black families made candied peel because oranges appeared in Christmas stockings, and nothing was wasted in kitchens where resourcefulness was survival. The peels dried on racks for days, their sugar coating hardening into a crust that shattered against teeth before the chewy fruit beneath emerged. Some families dipped them in chocolate, creating elegant confections worthy of fancy candy shops. Candied orange peel appeared on holiday platters as proof that thrift and elegance could coexist, each piece representing the transformation of scraps into treasure. Pickled eggs appeared in glass jars on African-American Christmas tables, their purple-tinted whites signaling the beet brine that transformed them. Hard-boiled eggs were submerged in spiced vinegar colored with beet juice, bay leaves, and peppercorns, then left to cure for days until pickling penetrated completely. The eggs emerged tangy and firm, with beet brine adding earthiness and striking color that made platters festive. Families prepared them weeks in advance, knowing flavor improved with time and jars could be stored without refrigeration. The tradition connected to preservation techniques sustaining communities before electricity reached rural homes. Sliced in half and arranged on platters, pickled eggs added protein and visual interest to appetizer spreads. Children were fascinated by the colors, often eating them just to see pink penetration through whites. The eggs represented thrift and planning, with families transforming cheap ingredients into conversation pieces guests remembered long after holidays ended. Crystallized violets were the fancy candy that Black grandmothers made when they wanted something truly special. Delicate flowers transformed into edible jewels that sparkled on holiday tables. Fresh violets were painted carefully with beaten egg white, then dusted with fine sugar and dried until the coating hardened into a protective shell. The process required patience and gentle hands. Too much pressure crushed the petals. Too little left gaps in the sugar coating. The finished flowers looked almost too beautiful to eat, their purple color preserved beneath sparkling crystals. Black families made crystallized violets because spring flowers could be preserved for months through this technique. The candy appeared on top of cakes or arranged on platters as decoration and treat combined. Violets carried subtle floral sweetness, their flavor delicate compared to bold molasses confections. Salmon croquettes served as mini appetizers were crispy golden patties that children devoured while standing in kitchens, their hands reaching for more before finishing what they were already eating. Grandmothers would drain cans of pink salmon, carefully picking through the meat to remove bones and skin, then flaking the fish into mixing bowls where it was combined with chopped onions, bell peppers, beaten eggs, cornmeal, and seasonings. The mixture was shaped into small patties, pressed firmly to ensure they held together, then carefully lowered into hot oil where they sizzled and turned golden brown. The exterior developed a crispy crust while the interior stayed moist and flavorful. In 1970s, Black households' salmon croquettes were economical elegance, transforming canned fish into something special worthy of holiday tables. Children loved them because they were handheld, didn't require forks, and packed protein and flavor into every crispy bite. Brown sugar bourbon ham glaze transformed the Christmas ham from ordinary to legendary, creating a mahogany crust that crackled when carved. Black mothers started with dark brown sugar, maple syrup, and Dijon mustard, but the secret was good bourbon, smooth stuff that added depth without harshness. The glaze was simmered with butter, apple cider vinegar, and blackstrap molasses that gave it caramel complexity. Some families added crushed pineapple, others used orange zest, but every family had their specific ratio. The ham was scored in diamonds, studded with cloves, then basted every 20 minutes, each application building layers of flavor. The glaze pooled at the bottom, mixing with drippings to create sauce so good people sopped it with rolls. This recipe was guarded because it made every other ham taste ordinary. Daughters-in-law asked for it, neighbors hinted, but the measurements stayed in mother's head until she decided you'd earned the right to carry it forward. Horehound candy carried medicinal memories into Christmas traditions. The bitter herb transformed into drops that old folks remembered from their grandparents' kitchens. Horehound tea was brewed strong, then sugar was added, and the mixture boiled until it reached hard crack stage. Poured onto greased slabs and scored before cooling completely, the candy was broken into pieces that looked like amber glass. The flavor was intensely herbal, an acquired taste that younger generations often rejected but elders craved. Black families made horehound candy because the herb grew wild and the candy soothed winter coughs while satisfying sweet cravings. The drops appeared in jars on mantles and side tables, available for anyone needing comfort. Horehound candy connected generations, each batch carrying memories of grandmothers who believed in the healing power of bitter herbs transformed into something approaching sweet. Souse meat slices showcased preservation art, sustaining African American families through lean times and celebrating abundance during holidays. Preparation involved boiling pigs' feet, ears, and snouts until tender, then chopping meat and suspending it in natural gelatin, seasoned with vinegar, hot peppers, and spices. The mixture was poured into molds and chilled until firm, then sliced thin for platters. Texture was unlike anything else. Cool, slightly chewy meat bound by savory jelly melting on the tongue. Families made souse days before Christmas, allowing flavors to develop fully. The dish required skill to balance vinegar's tang against meat's richness, with every household having different preferences. Elders ate souse with reverence, remembering when it represented survival rather than celebration. Younger generations often needed encouragement to try it, but those who did discovered flavors connecting them to ancestors. Souse reminded everyone that nothing worth having comes without patience, and heritage deserves preservation. Syllabub was the elegant Christmas punch that graced black parlors and dining rooms when families wanted to impress guests with something sophisticated and celebratory. This frothy drink combined cream, sugar, and wine or sherry, whipped until it became light and airy with a layer of foam floating delicately on top. The origins stretched back to colonial America, where black cooks in wealthy households learned the technique and eventually brought it to their own family tables. Making proper syllabub required whisking by hand until arms ached, a labor of love that couldn't be shortcut without sacrificing the essential texture. The drink was served cold in the family's finest glasses, its pale color and cloud-like appearance suggesting refinement and celebration. Some versions added lemon zest or nutmeg for complexity, while others kept the flavor pure and simple. Syllabub appeared at Black Christmas gatherings as a symbol of elegance and aspiration, proof that holiday celebrations deserved beauty alongside abundance. Pigs in blankets made with cocktail franks wrapped in crescent roll dough emerged from ovens as perfect little packages that children ate by the handful, their small size making them perfect for young appetites and hands that grabbed multiple pieces at once. Mothers would unroll refrigerated crescent dough, separating it along the perforations before cutting each triangle in half to create smaller pieces that wrapped around cocktail-sized hot dogs snugly. The wrapped franks were arranged on baking sheets with the dough seam facing down, sometimes brushed with melted butter or beaten egg for extra golden color. As they baked, The dough puffed up and turned flaky and golden, while the franks inside steamed and stayed juicy, creating combinations of textures that made every bite satisfying. In the 1970s, Black households, pigs in blankets represented quick, crowd-pleasing appetizers. Children loved them because they were perfectly sized for little hands. Lemon chess pie with whipped cream was the Christmas dessert that balanced all the heavy, rich foods with bright acidity. Black mothers made this with homemade crust, blind-baked to prevent sogginess. The filling combined eggs, sugar, butter, cornmeal, and fresh lemon juice and zest, lots of both for intense citrus flavor. The secret was adding a tablespoon of white vinegar along with the lemon juice, which created tang that made your mouth water. The pie baked until the center was just set, the top golden and slightly crackled. It cooled to room temperature, where it firmed into creamy, custardy filling that sliced clean. The whipped cream wasn't sweetened but left plain, so its richness balanced the pie's intense tartness. Some families added a splash of vanilla to the cream, but most kept it pure. This pie appeared at Christmas because lemons were expensive and using so many was a luxury. The vinegar addition stayed secret because most people assumed all the tang came from lemons alone. Sweet potato pie with cornmeal crust was the true heart of the Southern table, baked with love long before store-bought crusts ever appeared. The filling was made from mashed sweet potatoes whipped smooth with sugar, milk, and a hint of nutmeg or cinnamon, then poured into a crust of cornmeal and lard. That crust was golden and gritty, firm enough to hold but tender enough to crumble under a fork. As it baked, the scent of caramelized sweet potatoes and roasted corn filled the house, mingling with the sound of laughter and the hum of family gathering near the stove. This pie was both memory and meal, a creation born from the soil itself, made from two humble crops that had carried people through both hard times and harvests. It was a dish that did not need wealth to feel rich. Each slice offered sweetness that came not from sugar, but from care, from skill, and from the pride of feeding others. On Christmas tables, it gleamed like amber in the lamplight, a symbol of home, resilience, and gratitude. Sweet potato pie with cornmeal crust was more than dessert. It was the story of survival turned into something beautiful. Pecan log rolls were the fancy candy that Black grandmothers made when they wanted to impress. The nougat centers coated in caramel and rolled in chopped pecans that created bark-like exteriors. The process required making two separate candy components, a fluffy nougat center cooked to soft ball stage and beaten until light, then a caramel coating that had to be pliable enough to wrap but firm enough to hold its shape. Nougat was formed into logs. Then each log was wrapped in caramel and rolled immediately in finely chopped pecans before the coating set. The finished logs were sliced into rounds that revealed layers of white nougat, golden caramel, and nutty exterior. Making pecan logs took most of a day, the multi-step process demanding the kind of time that only holiday baking could justify. These candies appeared in gift boxes for special recipients, pastors, teachers, neighbors who had shown particular kindness. Pecan log rolls proved that Black candy making could rival any commercial confection. Tables only featured the main courses everyone remembers? Think again. Black families passed around platters of homemade appetizers that opened celebrations with flavor and tradition. Let's dig into 30 forgotten African-American Christmas appetizers no one makes anymore. Cheese straws were the golden welcome of every African-American Christmas gathering, twisting their way onto platters before guests removed their coats. These spirals combined sharp cheddar with flour, butter, and cayenne, mixed until the dough could be pressed through cookie presses or rolled and sliced by hand. Baking filled kitchens with toasted cheese and spice, signaling the celebration had begun. Families stored them in tins lined with wax paper, keeping them crisp for days of visiting. Church ladies competed over whose straws had perfect heat and richness, with recipes guarded closely. Children sneaked handfuls from parlor tables when adults weren't watching, learning these twists were worth getting caught. The tradition connected generations, with grandmothers teaching granddaughters the exact pressure needed for perfect straws. Store-bought versions cannot capture what homemade cheese straws represented. pride, hospitality, and the unmistakable taste of a Black Southern Christmas. Peanut soup had deep roots in West African cooking and carried over into the kitchens of Black America during times of scarcity. Families would boil peanuts until soft, grind them into a paste, and whisk them into broth with onions and seasonings. The result was a creamy, nutty soup that filled stomachs without relying on expensive meat. Because peanuts were widely available and inexpensive, this dish became a dependable source of protein and comfort. It could be served plain with bread or thickened with vegetables to stretch even further. Children grew up tasting peanut soup as a warm, sustaining dish that soothed hunger while carrying the echo of older traditions. The flavor was earthy and satisfying, reminding families of both resilience and cultural roots. Peanut soup showed that the most affordable ingredients could still produce something memorable, sustaining entire households during difficult seasons. It was not just soup, it was survival food with heritage poured into every bowl. Bourbon meatballs simmered in chafing dishes at African American Christmas gatherings, their sweet glaze drawing guests back. Ground beef or pork was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, and seasonings, shaped into balls and browned before bathing in sauce of bourbon, brown sugar, and tomato. The alcohol cooked off, leaving caramel sweetness balancing savory meat. Families kept them warm throughout celebrations, sauce thickening as hours passed. The bourbon added sophistication, elevating simple meatballs into something guests discussed for days. Church gatherings featured these regularly, with cooks adjusting bourbon to preference. Children could eat them safely since alcohol evaporated. The preparation allowed advanced cooking, with meatballs made days ahead and reheated. Bourbon meatballs represented the African American gift for creating elegance from simple ingredients and transforming everyday food into celebration. Honey taffy used the golden sweetness of local beekeepers instead of refined sugar, creating candy with floral complexity that corn syrup could never match. The honey was cooked with butter until it reached the proper stage, then poured onto marble slabs to cool before pulling began. Like molasses taffy, honey taffy required teamwork and patience. The mixture stretched and folded until it lightened and developed the characteristic chewy texture. The finished candy retained honey's distinctive flavor, each piece tasting of the flowers that bees had visited. Black families in rural areas made honey taffy because honey was often bartered or harvested from wild hives, making it more accessible than store-bought sugar. The candy connected Christmas to the land and seasons, each batch reflecting what local bees had gathered. Children who helped pull honey taffy remembered its particular sweetness, different from any other candy. This taffy represented self-sufficiency and connection to nature's gifts. Fried okra rounds served with ranch dressing were crispy, crunchy appetizers that introduced children to vegetables in ways that made them forget they were eating something healthy, the golden coating making every bite feel like a treat. Mothers would slice fresh okra into thick rounds, coating them first in buttermilk that helped breading adhere, then dredging them in seasoned cornmeal mixed with flour, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. The okra rounds were dropped into hot oil where they bubbled and crisped, the cornmeal coating turning golden brown while the okra inside stayed tender. Once drained on paper towels and sprinkled with extra salt while still hot, the okra was piled into serving bowls and placed near small dishes of ranch dressing that children dunked them into with enthusiasm. In Black households during the 1970s, fried okra represented Southern tradition meeting holiday hospitality. Children loved fried okra because it felt like eating fried chicken in vegetable form. Churned milk soup was what you made when you had finished making butter and still needed a meal. That leftover buttermilk became the base for a tangy, hearty soup that could feed a family from a single pot. It was mixed with cornmeal, herbs, and whatever vegetables were on hand, then simmered until it thickened like velvet. The smell was sharp but cozy, filling the kitchen with warmth and familiarity. Some families dropped bits of bread into the bowl, letting it soak up the flavor. It was simple food, born from old farm routines and frugal wisdom. Churned milk soup taught that nothing should ever be wasted, not even the scraps of a good day's work. It soothed hunger and reminded everyone that comfort could come from the most ordinary things. With each spoonful, It carried the echo of laughter and work from generations before. Sweet potato tea cakes were the taste of Christmas love, hand-shaped and baked with care when pie fixings were too dear. Mashed sweet potatoes took the place of expensive butter, giving each cake a soft golden hue and a sweetness all its own. The dough was mixed in big wooden bowls, rolled out on floured tables, and cut into circles by jar lids or tin cups. When they came out of the oven, the air turned rich with spice and sugar. These little cakes were passed around in napkins at church socials or packed for neighbors as gifts. Each one told a story of resourceful joy, how something so simple could still feel special. Children waited by the stove for the first warm bite, soft and fragrant in their hands. Sweet potato tea cakes were humble and heavenly, proof that love could rise even without plenty. Chocolate-covered cherries required the patience to dip each fruit individually, the process turning simple maraschino cherries into elegant confections. The cherries were drained and dried, then dipped in fondant before receiving their chocolate coating that set into glossy shells. Some families used a simpler method, wrapping cherries in softened fondant before dipping, achieving similar results with less precision. The magic happened during storage. The fondant slowly liquefied around the cherry, creating the characteristic syrupy center that burst with the first bite. Black families made chocolate-covered cherries for Christmas because they looked expensive while costing little, the transformation of cheap cherries into impressive candy, demonstrating kitchen alchemy. The candies were packed into boxes as gifts, each piece nestled in paper cups that caught any leaking syrup. Chocolate-covered cherries proved that homemade could rival store-bought when skill and patience combined. Stuffed celery with cream cheese and pimento created colorful boats that children picked up by their crunchy handles, the creamy filling contrasting perfectly with the crisp, fresh vegetable that provided texture amidst holiday indulgence. Mothers would wash and trim celery stalks, cutting them into 3-inch lengths before drying them thoroughly and arranging them on serving platters like little canoes. The filling was made by beating cream cheese until fluffy, then folding in diced pimentos, mayonnaise, and seasonings like garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. The cream cheese mixture was spread generously into each celery groove, mounded slightly and sometimes garnished with paprika, chopped olives, or crispy bacon. In Black households during the 1970s, stuffed celery represented an attempt to include something fresh among heavier holiday offerings. Children loved them because the cream cheese provided richness while celery added refreshing crunch. Sweet potato biscuits with cane syrup were Christmas breakfast tradition that turned leftover sweet potatoes into something special. Black mothers mashed roasted sweet potatoes, then mixed them into biscuit dough with buttermilk, butter, and just enough flour to make the dough workable. The secret was adding a tablespoon of honey to the dough, which enhanced the sweet potatoes' natural sweetness. The biscuits were tender and slightly sweet, their orange color making them festive. They were served hot with butter and cane syrup drizzled over top, the syrup's molasses notes complementing the sweet potatoes perfectly. These biscuits appeared on Christmas morning alongside eggs, sausage, and grits, their sweetness balancing savory breakfast foods. Children especially loved them because they tasted almost like dessert. The honey addition stayed secret because it was the difference between good sweet potato biscuits and extraordinary ones. Panouche brought brown sugar richness to the fudge family, its maple-like flavor distinguishing it from chocolate versions that dominated most candy platters. Brown sugar, milk, and butter cooked together created a base darker and more complex than white sugar could achieve, the molasses notes emerging as the candy set. Like traditional fudge, panouche required beating until the mixture lost its gloss, then pouring quickly before it seized in the pot. The finished candy was tan-colored and creamy, sometimes studded with pecans that added crunch to the smooth sweetness. Black families in regions where maple was scarce used panouche to achieve similar flavors using ingredients already in the pantry. The candy appeared on Christmas platters as the sophisticated cousin of chocolate fudge, appealing to adults who appreciated its complexity. Panouche required the same skills as chocolate fudge but offered different rewards, proving that mastery in candy making opened doors to endless variations. Sausage balls made with breakfast sausage, cheese, and biscuit mix, baked into savory spheres that children popped into their mouths like candy, their crispy exteriors giving way to soft, cheesy, slightly spicy interiors. Mothers would combine raw breakfast sausage with shredded sharp cheddar cheese and dry biscuit mix, kneading everything together until well combined. The mixture was then rolled into balls about an inch in diameter, arranged on baking sheets with space between them, and baked until golden brown. As they baked, the fat from the sausage rendered while the cheese melted, creating savory, flavorful bites that were crispy outside and tender inside. In the 1970s, Black households, sausage balls represented easy entertaining, a recipe that could be made ahead. Children loved sausage balls because they were perfectly portioned, required no utensils, and delivered breakfast flavors in snackable form. Which African-American Christmas dish do you wish your family still made? Share your holiday memories in the comments below.